Hello and welcome to Daily Prelims Practice. Here we are going to take up the MCQs based on today's newspaper of The Hindu and Indian Express, which are important from UPSC Prelims exam perspective. The topics for today's discussion are listed on your screen. So let us start the discussion. Before moving on to the discussion, we have an important announcement for you. As the UPSC Prelims exam is approaching, this is the best time to test your preparation level and the confidence which is required for the prelims exam. In this regard, Raus IAS Study Circle is going to organize the pre-prediction test for 2023 on 28th and 29th January. The registration for the test is mandatory and the link for that is provided in the YouTube description. There are only 2 days left for the registration for offline test. If you have not registered, kindly register yourself. See you on the test day. The first question of today's discussion is based on this particular news which has appeared on page number 9 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the Odisha Disaster Management Authority and Mizoram's fire station which has bagged the Central Award for their excellent work in the field of disaster management. As we all know, disaster management is an important area in the governance of the country and for the welfare of the people. In the recent Joshimath crisis, the disaster management authorities play a very crucial role in providing relief to the affected people. So we must be aware about the Disaster Management Act which India has brought in after the 2004 tsunami to manage the disasters in a systematic manner. And UPSC has previously asked many questions on various acts and rules which are framed by Union government to provide for better facilities to the people of the country. And in the year 2020, UPSC has asked about Forest Rights Act 2006. In this question, you need to identify the nodal ministry which will ensure the effective implementation of Forest Rights Act. You can pause this video and try a hand on this. On the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ on Disaster Management Act and it says, with reference to the Disaster Management Act 2005, consider the following statements. In this question, you are required to identify the correct statement. The first statement says, it calls for the establishment of National Disaster Management Authority with the Home Minister as a chairperson. Many of you must be aware that NDMA, National Disaster Management Authority, is constituted under this act, but the chairperson of this authority is Prime Minister of India and not the Home Minister. So this statement becomes incorrect. The second statement says, it was invoked in 2020 for the first time since the legislation came into force. You must be surprised that it is a correct statement. It was only during the COVID pandemic the Disaster Management Act was invoked for the first time in the country. So this statement becomes correct. The third statement says the Act provides for constituting a National Disaster Response Force for the purpose of specialist response to threatening disaster situation. It is again a correct statement as Disaster Management Act 2005 constitutes a specialized agency which will come into play as a response to the disasters. So this statement becomes correct. And the answer to this question becomes D, which is 2 and 3 only. And the answer to the previous year question is also D, as Ministry of Tribal Affairs is the nodal agency for the implementation of FRA. Try to remember such facts. From this particular question, you must be getting an idea how to deal with the acts and what kind of facts you need to memorize for your prelims exam. The next question of today's discussion is based on this news which has appeared on page number 15 in Indian Express. It basically talks about the P notes, and this news article says that the investment in India via P notes drops to 96,000 crore in December 2022. P notes is an important offshore derivative instrument to raise the funds in stock market. And this area becomes important under the economy section of our UPSC Prelims exam. As you can see, in the year 2019, UPSC has asked a question in which you need to identify which of the following instrument is used by the foreign portfolio investors to invest in Indian stock market. It is an easy question and you can solve this by applying your common sense. And the practice question in this regard says, with reference to participatory notes, which is also known as P notes, which of the following statements is or are correct? In this question, you need to identify the correct statements. The first statement says, these are the financial instruments required by overseas investors to invest in Indian securities. As we have discussed in the description, it is a correct statement as participatory notes is an instrument issued by the registered foreign institutional investors to the overseas investors who wish to invest in Indian stock market. So, it is a correct statement. The second statement says, foreign investors must register themselves with SEBI before making investment through P notes. Now, this statement is a tricky one, and if you are following the newspapers thoroughly, you must know that this statement is incorrect. P notes is an instrument in which overseas investors invest in Indian stock market without registering themselves with SEBI. So, this statement becomes incorrect. The third statement says they can be issued within country to raise funds by private players. Now, if you understand this question as a whole, you will get an idea about the third statement from the first statement itself. In this, it is specifically mentioned that P notes is a financial instruments required by the overseas investors. So, there are less chances that this instrument can be used by private players within the country to raise funds, as P notes are issued only outside India for making investments in the stock market, which is why they are also referred as offshore derivative instruments. So, this statement becomes incorrect. And the answer to this question becomes A, which is 1 only. And the answer to the previous year question is D, as this statement talks about the participatory notes. The next question of today's discussion is based on this news which has appeared on page number 12 in The Hindu. It basically talks about INS Vagir, which is the 5th Scorpion submarine commissioned into Indian Navy and has started its sea trials in the year 2022, as submarines play an important role in our strategic deterrence towards the hostile neighbors. This area becomes important for our discussion. And in the previous years, UPSC has also asked a question on such kind of development. So, we must be aware about the key facts associated with this particular submarine. In the year 2016, UPSC has specifically asked about INS Astradharini, and you need to identify the correct option from the given 4 options. On the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ on INS Vagir with reference to INS Vagir. Which one of the following statement is correct? The first option says a diesel electric attack submarine built in collaboration with France. Option B says a torpedo launch vehicle built by DRDO. The third option says a nuclear powered ballistic missile submarine. And the fourth option says none of the above. Whenever you come across such questions in which you do not have any idea about the development, just try to follow the hints which are given in the options. As you can see, the word submarine is mentioned at 2 places. So there are high chances that the answer will be from these 2 options. And if you have any piece of information regarding this particular development, that they are being built in collaboration with France, you will reach to the correct answer. Hence, the answer to this question becomes A. INS Vagir is a Kalvari class diesel electric attack submarine which is built in collaboration with France. Further, total 6 submarines will be built under this project, and the last one is named as INS Vagir. Try to remember such facts which can be directly asked in the UPSC Prelims exam. And the answer to the previous year question is C, as INS Astradharini is a torpedo launch and recovery vessel. Now from this particular question, we are trying to give you an idea and to build your thought process that whenever you come across such kind of news, how you should approach that particular information. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news, which has appeared on page number 8 in The Hindu. It basically talks about the basic structure of Indian Constitution and the implications of this particular development, which resulted out of Keshwananda Bharti case. You must be aware that there is some controversy going on in the Indian political system after the statement of Vice President of India. Now, such kind of development is not very important as far as our UPSC Prelims exam is concerned, but the features of Indian Constitution is a recurring theme in our UPSC Prelims exam, so we must cover all the dimensions associated with Indian Constitution. In the year 2019, UPSC has asked a question on the amendments to the Constitution of India. In this question, you are being given 2 statements and you need to identify which of the following is or are correct. We have framed one practice MCQ on the various sources from which the features of Indian Constitution had been borrowed. The first option says the procedure established by law is borrowed from US Constitution. It is an incorrect option. This particular feature has been borrowed by Constitution of Japan and not by US. The second option says the nomination of members to the Rajya Sabha and method of election of president is borrowed from Canada. It is again an incorrect option, as these 2 features have been borrowed from Irish Constitution and not from Canadian Constitution. The third option says the suspension of fundamental rights during emergency is a borrowed feature from Australian Constitution. It is again an incorrect option, as this particular feature has been borrowed from German Constitution and not from Australian Constitution. So, In this question, all the pairs are incorrect. The answer to this question becomes D, which is none of the above. And the answer to the previous year question is B, which is 2 only. As the 99th constitutional amendment was related to NJAC, which Supreme Court has struck down. So this statement is correct. And in the first statement, the election of Prime Minister was placed beyond judicial review under 42nd Amendment Act and not the 44th. So this statement becomes incorrect. Moving on to the next question, which is based on this news, and it has appeared on page number 15 in Indian Express. This news says that NARCL, which is known as National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited, acquires its first stressed account from IDBI Bank. Now this particular body has been constituted by government, which will take care of the stressed assets of the Indian banking system. It was also mentioned in the previous economic survey of Government of India. So it becomes important for our discussion. And in the year 2017, UPSC has asked about National Investment and Infrastructure Fund. In this question, you are being given two statements and you need to identify which of the following statement is or are correct. From this particular question, you will get an idea that why such bodies and organizations are important for our UPSC Prelims exam. That is the thought process behind this particular question. The practice question says, with reference to National Asset Reconstruction Company Limited, consider the following statements. In this question, you are being given three statements and you need to identify which of the following statement is or are correct. The first statement says, it has been set up to clean the legacy of stressed assets with an exposure of rupees 500 crore and above in the Indian banking system. It is a correct statement as NARCL will be taking care of the assets of rupees more than 500 crore and above. So this statement becomes correct. The second statement says it is a government entity with majority stakes held by public sector banks and balanced by private banks. It is again a correct statement as public sector banks will maintain 51% of the shares in the NARCL ownership and rest will be held by private banks. So this statement becomes correct. The third statement says Government of India will back security receipts issued by NARCL for the period of 10 years. Now this statement is incorrect, although the Government of India will back the security receipts, but it is only for the period of 5 years and not for 10 years, making this statement incorrect. And the answer to this question becomes C, which is 1 and 2 only. And answer to the previous year question is D, which is neither 1 nor 2. The last question of today's discussion is based on this particular news, in which the WHO report has said that globally more than 5 billion people are vulnerable to the health hazards associated with the trans fats. WHO in 2018 has called for the elimination of trans fats to reduce the risk of heart diseases. As it is an important area of discussion related to the health of people, so we must analyze this particular issue with the help of a practice MCQ which we have designed to give you an idea about the trans fats. And in the year 2017, UPSC has asked about the commonly used materials in our day-to-day life and the unwanted chemicals which are likely to be found in them. In this question, you are being given 3 pairs and you need to identify which of the following is or are correctly matched. On the similar lines, we have designed one practice MCQ and it says, consider the following statements. In this, you need to identify which of the following statement is or are correct. The first statement says, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India has mandated to reduce the limit of industrially produced trans fats to not more than 2%. It is a correct statement. Food Safety Authority has capped the amount of industrially produced trans fats to 2% to reduce the risk of heart diseases. So this statement is correct. The second statement says trans fats can only be artificially produced in an industrial process that adds hydrogen to liquid vegetable oils to make them more solid. It is an incorrect statement as trans fats are produced naturally in the gut of some animals and foods made from these animals. So this statement becomes incorrect. The third statement says, World Health Organization's Replace program is related to eliminating industrially produced trans fat. It is a correct statement as in the year 2018, WHO launched the Replace Action Package to support governments to eliminate the trans fats from global food supply by 2023. So this statement is correct. And the answer to this question becomes C, which is 1 and 3 only. And the answer to the previous year question is D, as all the pairs are correctly matched. So these were all the questions for today's discussion. Thank you for watching today's DPP and stay tuned for upcoming sessions which will improve your preparation level for the UPSC Prelims exam.